Oh, hi, I'm just sitting here waiting on that space-time shockwave to hit. Any second now. Come on, Anorax! This is a review of the Star Trek Voyager episode Year of Hell. If you have not seen this episode and you don't want to know what happens in it, not that it matters, because it literally doesn't, be warned, spoilers beyond this point. Speaking of spoilers, I don't want to spoil my review before I even start into the plot summary, but here's a fun fact that might also serve as a clue to my opinion of this episode. Year of Hell is the episode that made me stop watching this show during its original broadcast run. Okay, now let me tell you what happens in it, and you see if you can figure out why. We open as a scary-looking ship appears over an inhabited planet, and a title informs us that this is Day 1. Day 1 for the people on the planet? Nope. Day 1 for the people on the scary ship? So why are we being told it's Day 1 in this scene at this location involving these characters? I don't know. Anyway, this is Anorax, and he's the captain of the scary ship, which has a weapon capable of erasing its targets from history. He shoots you with it, and you don't just die, you never existed. He shoots this colony, and everyone and everything in it gets erased. But his right-hand man, Obrist, tells him that it didn't have the desired effect. So Anorax says, "All right then, we'll just have to erase the entire species. Let's roll." Meanwhile, on Voyager, the crew is celebrating their fancy new astrometrics lab, courtesy of Harry and Seven. Now they can scan space even better than they could scan it before, and they've already plotted a course that will get them back to Federation territory 5 years sooner. That's neat. The doctor starts to give a long-winded speech that nobody else wants to hear, but mercifully, the crew is called to the bridge to deal with the approach of an unknown vessel. The vessel fires on Voyager, but it poses no threat because it's just Whittle. Its captain is this Stephen Miller-looking douche who's like, "You have entered Krenim space. Reverse course or be destroyed." Janeway kind of shrugs him off and says, "Sorry, we didn't know this was Krenim space. Our awesome new astrometrics lab indicated that this was Zal space." The Stephen Miller guy is like, "This is not Zal space. This is Krenim space. You people are jerks. I'm leaving." And he fucks off. A few days later, Janeway's having a chat with a representative of the Zal, who explains that the Krenim used to be a big deal around here thanks to their temporal weapons, but a few generations ago the Zal defeated them, so now the Krenim mostly just wander around in their pathetic little ships trying and failing to intimidate people. Case in point, the wormy little Stephen Miller dude is back. Everyone is in the process of shrugging him off again when a massive space-time shockwave, which Harry detects is originating from the Zal homeworld, rolls in over everything. When the shockwave is passed, the Zal guy is gone, the Krenim ship is a lot bigger, the Stephen Miller guy is a lot smugger, if that's even possible, and Voyager is in a lot worse shape. The bridge is on red alert, and a member of the crew is dead. Voyager escapes by jumping to warp, but before they go, Janeway turns to Chakotay and says, "This is turning into the week of hell." I get it. Some foreshadowing, and the line is meant to be ironic, given that this week of hell is at the beginning of a whole year of hell upcoming. But having your main character say something so flippant when the ship has just survived an attack from a superior enemy and there's a dead crew member on the floor, it kinda undermines the seriousness of the situation, you know? Whatever. We check in with Anorax, and his main man Obrist is coming in with good news. The eradication of the Zal from history has restored the Krenim Imperium to 98% of its former glory. Their people are powerful again. Mission accomplished. Not so fast, says Anorax. What about that one particular colony that I've been fixated on? Obrist is like, "No, that wasn't restored, but almost everything else was." Not good enough for Anorax. He tells Obrist, "As you know, we've been on this ship for 200 years, shielded from the passage of time, using its history-erasing weapon to try and restore our empire to its full power. Our mission isn't over until we have brought back everything we lost." Time goes on. Voyager continues to endure attacks from the Krenim. The ship is in really bad shape. Crew members have been lost. Nobody important, but I guess They're sad about it. Things are going so badly that Chakotay suggests to Janeway that they all abandon ship, split up the crew into smaller groups aboard shuttles and escape pods, try to make it to the other side of Krenim space, and then rendezvous and figure something out from there. Janeway says no. The Krenim attack again. Cut to a couple of weeks later, things are worse. Harry and B'Elanna are trapped in a turbolift waiting to be rescued, passing the time by playing a trivia game. Harry challenges B'Elanna to name the famous Earth ship that led to first contact between humans and Vulcans, and B'Elanna can't quite come up with it, because this show was produced during an era when writers treated the characters like people who lived in the world of the show, not trivia-obsessed fans who'd been watching the show. See, I give Voyager credit for stuff. Anyway, more time passes, things keep getting worse. Chakotay tries to give Janeway a replica of an old watch for her birthday, but she's like, recycle it into something useful instead, you sentimental dipshit. A Krenim torpedo gets lodged in a maintenance tube and goes off while Tuvok and Seven are there to study it, and as a result, Tuvok goes blind. But on the bright side, Seven is able to scan the torpedo and gain necessary information that enables them to equip Voyager with temporal shielding, capable of withstanding the Krenim weapons. As a bonus, the next time Anarax uses his history eraser, Voyager is protected from the effects. Another space-time shockwave rolls through, only this time, instead of making the Krenim ship they're facing bigger and stronger, it shrinks back down to a little itty-bitty ship like the one they don't remember facing the first time. Only now, thanks to the temporal shielding, the crew of Voyager notices the difference. Thanks to astrometrics, they learn that somehow, virtually the entire Krenim Imperium has suddenly vanished. It turns out Anarax's calculations were a little off on this one, and instead of making the Krenim Imperium stronger, it knocks them back to a pre-warp level of technology. Obrist has an explanation, though. Voyager. Its presence in this region of space represents an unknown element, and it's throwing off all their equations. So Anarax pays a little visit to Voyager and collects samples to better understand its effect on the timeline. Samples in the form of Chakotay and Paris, who are both beamed aboard Anarax's ship. Anarax tries to use his history eraser to destroy Voyager, but Janeway manages to warp away in time, though going into warp while in the grip of Anarax's anti-time death ray or whatever it is does even more damage to Voyager. Janeway meets with the rest of the crew in the mess hall and says, okay, hey, guess what? Chakotay was right. We're going to abandon ship. Or more precisely, you are going to abandon ship and take your chances getting through Krenim space in escape pods, and me and the rest of the important characters are gonna stay on Voyager. Sound good? Doesn't matter. I'm the boss. Do what I tell you. Bye. End of part 1. Part 2 begins a couple of months later, and Anarax finally decides to release Chakotay and Tom from solitary confinement. He cleans them up, gets them some new clothes, and invites them to the saddest dinner ever, where all the food is from civilizations which no longer exist because Anarax wiped them from history. He's like, Mr. Paris, you're devouring the last remnants of the Alsuran Empire, which I erased from existence. And Tom's like, did you erase salt from existence too? I can barely taste this slop. Anarax makes Chakotay and Tom an offer. He'll spare Voyager if they help him to achieve his goal of restoring the Krenim Imperium to its ultimate glory. To do that, he needs to know all about Voyager and what it's been up to since it got to the Delta Quadrant. Once he knows that, he can calculate a way to use his history-erasing death ray to not only bring back 100% of the old Krenim Empire, but restore Voyager and get it closer to home as well. Tom's like, how much more time travel genocide are you going to have to do for that? And Anarax is like, probably a lot. But Chakotay says, hang on, if this ship can wipe anything from history, not just people and civilizations, but anything, wouldn't it be possible to alter history without killing anyone? Anarax is like, yeah, but it's way easier to just kill people. Chakotay's like, challenge accepted. So Chakotay does his time travel genocide homework, and after about a month, he thinks he has a solution. Get rid of a rogue comet that Voyager encountered 8 months ago. If Voyager hadn't course corrected to avoid the comet, it never would have entered Krenim space in the first place. Anarax is like, nice job. Let's run a simulation and see what would happen if we erased that comet. Oopsie, turns out that comet was crucial to the evolution of life in this region of space. You destroyed all civilizations within 50 light years. A couple of months later, hey, things still suck on Voyager. The Doctor tries to relieve Captain Janeway of duty because she's been putting herself at risk to hold the ship together, and Janeway's like, okay, go ahead and relieve me of duty. Good luck with that, since there's only like 6 of us left on board, and I can turn your digital ass off whenever I feel like it. Eat me, Hollow Man. She finds the watch Chakotay wanted to give her and decides, oh shit, I guess I'll keep it. And she starts wearing it on her belt as though it means something, because we're 4 seasons in and she still hasn't figured out what show she's on. Chakotay is still deep in his time travel genocide research when Tom comes in and says, hey, so I was just playing space checkers with Obrist, Anarax's #1 guy, and as he sat there whining about his dead family, I realized that the crew of this ship is not happy. They've been on this mission for 200 years. Most of them just want to go home. Chakotay says, nice work, but keep that in your pocket for now. I still want to see if I can get the formula just right on this history-erasing death ray. Tom says, damn, man, what did it take, like 2 months for you to go full-on time Nazi? Chakotay says, Anarax isn't a time Nazi. He's just misguided. Then Anarax wipes out another civilization because he got a wild hair up his ass that getting rid of those people would restore the Krenim by 52%. Chakotay pulls him aside and says, hey, man, I thought we were trying to do this without killing anyone else. And Anarax says, grow up. We're not even actually killing anyone, just making it so they never existed in the first place. See? Genocide loophole. Anyway, let me tell you about my tragic backstory. See, I built this ship to change history to the benefit of my people. The first time I did it, everything went great. But I wasn't satisfied. I changed history again, and that time I accidentally wiped out the colony where my wife is from. I lost her, our children, our grandchildren, my entire family. Ever since then, no matter how much more of the Krenim Imperium I restore, I've never been able to restore that colony. Sad, right? Later, Chakotay's talking with Tom about Anarax, like, sad, right? And Tom says, no. He's history's greatest mass murderer. Literally. Fuck this guy. We gotta get out of here. I think Obrist is on our side. If I can convince him to let me send a message to Voyager so Captain Janeway can find us, then, with help from Obrist, we can disable the temporal core on this ship so that it becomes vulnerable to Voyager's weapons. Chakotay's like, okay, fine, let's do that, since you seem to have so little faith in my ability to rehabilitate the most evil man who ever lived. A little later, Voyager has somehow forged an alliance with some other ships, and Janeway has received a message from Tom, so they're all on their way to confront Anarax's ship. Janeway has decided to split up her remaining crew, sending them to the various allied ships to coordinate the attack on Anarax, while Janeway herself remains on Voyager. Tuvok tries to talk her out of staying, since Voyager is in such terrible shape that it's unlikely to survive the battle, but Janeway gives Tuvok a schmaltzy talk about how Voyager's been their home and kept them safe, while the score swells behind her like she's fucking Brana delivering the St. Crispin's Day speech. And then they confront Anarax, and there's a battle, and Obrist flips just like Tom and Chakotay planned, and Obrist shuts down the temporal core and beams Tom and Chakotay away to safety, and Janeway says, I'm gonna ram Voyager into Anarax's ship, because if I destroy his ship, that might reset history to where it was before he started changing it. What reason does she have to think that might happen? None whatsoever, but that's what we're going with. She crashes Voyager into Anarax's ship. The temporal core goes critical, causing a temporal incursion inside the ship that erases it from existence. And we're back on day 1. And Voyager's fine, and everyone's fine, and that 2-part episode you just watched didn't even happen. And hey, look, there's Anarax on his planet with his wife. And they're happy and fine too, because I guess he's not going to become time travel Hitler this time. Well, good for him. The end. I know a lot of people really like this episode, and I respect that. Art is subjective. Nobody is right or wrong. Everyone has an opinion. All opinions regarding the quality of a given work are equally valid, and my opinion is that this episode is the absolute shits. It's not that it's poorly made from a production standpoint. From that angle, it's actually quite good. The alterations to the sets to depict Voyager as progressively more damaged and distressed are excellent. The lowered lighting, the damaged walls, the debris cluttering up seemingly every horizontal surface, all of that works well to create the impression that Voyager has taken a beating. The costume and makeup departments do a great job along those same lines, making the characters appear bruised, bloodied, constantly disheveled as the year wears on, all except the Doctor, of course, who remains looking clean and crisp and fit for inspection the whole time because he's a magic man made of light. It's not that the episode is poorly acted either. It's quite well acted. All of the Voyager regulars do as good a job with this material as possible. Kate Mulgrew convincingly sells Janeway's tenacity, her commitment to her ship and crew, her willingness to put her own life and body on the line if it means getting everyone through one more day. And beyond the regular cast, Kurtwood Smith is very good as Anorax, playing him with just enough pathos and humanity to make his cold-blooded willingness to wipe out entire civilizations with the push of a button all the more chilling. It's not even that the episode doesn't have a promising concept or some interesting ideas at play. It does. The character of Anorax is almost nothing but promising concepts and interesting ideas. Here's a guy who creates this history-erasing weapon, as horrifying as it is, for what are, to him at least, altruistic reasons. He wants to improve the fortunes of his people. He succeeds at doing that, but his success isn't good enough. He tries for more and loses everything that's important to him. Now his motivation is no longer altruistic, it's selfish. He doesn't spend the next 200 years erasing one civilization after another to restore the Krenim Imperium to its full power. He's trying to bring back his wife. And that is the one goal that always eludes him, no matter what he tries. That's an interesting character. To be clear, he's evil from the very beginning. It doesn't matter if his motive was to help his people or not. His method of helping his people was to eradicate other people from history. So he's a monster from day one. But it's interesting how, as his crimes grow in number and scope, his ambition shrinks. All he wants is his wife back. But the whole reason his wife is gone in the first place is because he felt entitled to screw around with history. That's one hell of a tragic villain right there. In his basic conception, he's a very impressive character. There's also some potential in Chakotay's seduction to the dark side. He's not okay with the mass murders, but he thinks maybe there's another way. Maybe we can erase some comets or something and get good results without erasing any civilizations. It's a compelling possibility, but it fails. Because whether you're Anorax wiping out billions of people, or you're Chakotay scribbling rewrites into the margins of history, the premise is fundamentally flawed. You can't fix today by changing yesterday. The best you can do is fix tomorrow by laying a better foundation today. That seems to be the message of the episode, although the episode doesn't really meaningfully engage with that message, and it stands in direct contradiction to many other Star Trek episodes, including Voyager episodes, that seem to say, no, actually, changing the past is a very effective way to fix things in the present. And the episode undermines its own message with the ending, where Anorax is somehow returned to his original life, to live happily with his wife, suffering no consequences for his unthinkable crimes. Though, I guess technically, since the time ship and everything it did was erased, Anorax's crimes never happened. But wait, if the temporal core blew up and that caused the time ship to be wiped from history, and that's why everything went back to the way it was and the year of hell was erased at the end, why does Anorax exist at all? He said it's causing a temporal incursion inside the ship, so why didn't the temporal incursion not only wipe out the ship, but also everyone on the ship? Isn't that how the weapon works every other time we've seen it used in the episode? Whatever it touches is erased from history? Did they really change the rules at the last second just to give fucking Anorax a happy ending? Also, Anorax built the ship. He knows how it works. If all he had to do in order to undo all of the changes he made to history, including the one that erased his wife, was turn the death ray on the ship itself, wouldn't he have known that? Why didn't he do that like 200 years ago? Anyway, that's the sort of nitpicking I sometimes resort to when faced with a bad episode. And as I said, it's not a bad episode because of production or acting or a flawed basic concept. It's a bad episode because it's a forced, phony, pointless waste of 90 minutes. Or 2 hours if you watched it the old-fashioned way on TV with commercials. Things start out interesting, introducing Anorax as the villain, showing the sudden change aboard Voyager when that first space-time shockwave hits. But the longer the episode drags on and the more dire Voyager's situation becomes, the more obvious it is that somebody is going to mash the reset button before this thing is over. And I assure you, that's not just hindsight talking because I've seen this episode before. Back in November 1997, during its original broadcast, 17-year-old Steve was watching and thinking to himself, ain't no way any of this shit is going to stick. And this was in the waning days of my young Republican phase, so 17-year-old Steve was wrong about a lot of shit, but he was right about this. Nice job, 17-year-old Steve, you self-satisfied, insufferable ass. Good thing I'm not like that anymore. I often feel it necessary to remind my fellow Trekkies who seem a little too invested in the trivial minutiae that Star Trek is just a made-up TV show. Nothing that happens in it actually happens. But you run into a bit of a problem, dramatically speaking, when you do an episode where nothing that happens in it actually happens for the characters either. Like, it's not real for me, but if it's not even real for the people in the show, why should I give a shit? More importantly, when you can sense as you're watching the episode that nothing that happens in it is going to end up mattering at all to any of the characters, it becomes basically impossible to have any degree of investment in the story at all. Voyager takes a beating. So what? I spend the entire episode expecting that by the end, Voyager will be good as new. Janeway is burned and scarred. Tuvok loses his eyesight. Most of the support crew abandons the ship in escape pods. Even if I cared about any of those characters in the first place, why would I care when there is never a moment in either half of this two-part episode when I believe Janeway is still going to be scarred up, Tuvok is still going to be blind, or the crew is still going to be scattered through the galaxy in escape pods when this episode is over. And remember, it's not just that the show restores the status quo at the end, it restores the status quo by resetting back to where we started. Tuvok doesn't get his eyesight back because Voyager survives its hellish year-long trip through Krenim space and the Doctor is finally able to heal him. Voyager doesn't get back to looking like a proper Starfleet vessel because the crew gets some breathing room and has time to repair it. Everything goes back to the way it was because nothing in this episode actually happens in the lives of these characters. The events of the episode have no consequences, and the characters don't even remember that they ever experienced them. It has no impact on the characters or the status quo of the show. It's not entertaining or compelling in its own right because the reset is so telegraphed that the entire episode is just an exercise in prolonging the inevitable. So why even do this? What is the point of telling this story in this way when nothing that happens in it makes any difference to anything? And it was at that moment that 17-year-old Steve experienced one of his first moments of clarity as a Star Trek fan and realized that he found not just this episode, but Voyager as a series to be tedious and pointless and kind of insulting. That being the case, the question became, then why are you watching this? So I stopped watching. I dipped in every now and then for a random episode, and I watched the series finale when it aired, but nothing I saw made me sorry I stopped. I did eventually go back and catch up on the rest of the show, and I'm glad I did, because there are some solid Voyager episodes post-Year of Hell, just as there are pre-Year of Hell, but my overall opinion of the show hasn't changed in all these years. It has a good cast, a good premise, and some good episodes sprinkled throughout the run. Hell, some really, really good episodes, a few of which I've already reviewed, as part of these retro reviews. But big picture, judged on the whole, I don't think Voyager's a good show. It's got potential, but it's mostly a frustrating disappointment. Mostly boring, vaguely drawn characters, mostly doing stuff that doesn't matter. That's my one-line summary of Star Trek Voyager, and it's also my one-line review of this episode. Those are my thoughts on Year of Hell. What do you think of this episode? Please share your thoughts with me in the comments. If you'd like to support this channel, and I sure wish you would, if you can afford it, you can do so by becoming a patron at patreon.com/Steve Shives, becoming a channel member by clicking the join button, or by making a one-time gift by clicking the thanks button, or via PayPal or Venmo. Links are in the description. Join me next time as we continue this batch of reviews of episodes about alternate timelines with another episode of Star Trek Voyager, this one from Season 5. It's an episode called Timeless. That's next week. See you then. Thanks for watching, and take care, everybody.